Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something very common, something almost everyone has experienced: setting goals but not taking action. Many people begin with excitement, a new notebook, a fresh plan, a list of goals. Sometimes it happens at the beginning of the year, sometimes at the beginning of the month. Sometimes late at night when we suddenly feel motivated, we sit down and write things carefully. Exercise 3 times a week. Study English every day. Wake up earlier. Read more books. Change my life. The plan looks beautiful, clear, organized, hopeful. For a moment we feel proud, because planning feels like progress. Writing goals feels like movement. It feels like something important has begun. But then something quiet happens. The next day comes. Life continues. Work, messages, small distractions. The notebook stays on the desk. The plan stays on paper, and the action never begins. This happens more often than we like to admit. Many people are excellent at planning. But planning and action are not the same thing. In fact, planning can sometimes trick the brain. When we make a plan, the brain gives us a small sense of reward. It feels good. It feels productive. But the real work has not started yet. There is a quiet difference between imagining progress and creating progress. Imagine someone who wants to learn a new language. They buy books. They download apps. They watch videos about learning methods. They organize their study plan. But days pass. Weeks pass. The books stay closed. The lessons never begin. Buying books feels like progress. But reading them is the real work. Planning workouts feels productive. But exercising is the real work. Thinking about change feels powerful. But action is where change actually begins. And yet many people stay in the planning stage. Why? Why do we write goals but struggle to act? Why do we feel motivated at night but hesitant the next morning? Why does the idea of change feel exciting but the first step feel heavy? The answer is not laziness. Most people are not lazy. They want to improve. They want to grow. They want a better life. But something invisible often stands between intention and action. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is doubt. Sometimes it is the quiet hope that motivation will appear tomorrow. We tell ourselves, I will start next week. I will begin when I have more time. I will do it when I feel ready. But readiness is a strange idea, because readiness rarely arrives. Most meaningful things in life begin before we feel ready. A writer begins before confidence appears. An athlete trains before strength is visible. A student studies before understanding feels easy. Action often comes first. Confidence comes later. But many of us wait. We wait for motivation. We wait for inspiration. We wait for the perfect moment. And while we wait, time continues moving. Days pass quietly, weeks move forward, and our goals remain where they started. On paper, inside notebooks, inside our thoughts, but not yet in our actions. This is the quiet struggle many people face. Not the lack of goals, but the lack of movement. Not the lack of dreams, but the absence of the first step. Understanding this struggle is where the story begins. Because when we understand why action feels difficult, we can begin to change how we approach it. And that is what we will explore next. To understand why we do not act, we must first understand the human mind. The mind does not always choose what is good for the future. Very often it chooses what feels comfortable right now. Imagine someone who decides to start exercising. They buy new shoes. They prepare a workout plan. They imagine themselves becoming healthier and stronger. But the next morning arrives. The alarm rings early. The bed feels warm. The room feels quiet. And the mind whispers something simple. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And the goal slowly fades into the background of life. This happens because action requires effort. Effort requires energy. And the brain naturally tries to save energy whenever it can. The brain prefers familiar patterns. Familiar habits feel safe, even if those habits are not helpful. Change feels uncertain. Uncertainty feels uncomfortable. So the brain often chooses the easier path. There is another reason action becomes difficult. Perfection. Many people believe they must begin perfectly. They wait for the perfect plan, the perfect schedule, the perfect level of motivation. But perfection is a moving target. It never truly arrives. Imagine someone who wants to start writing a book. They think about the story. They imagine the chapters. They organize the ideas in their mind. But when they sit down to write, something stops them. The first sentence feels important. Too important. They want it to be good. They want it to be impressive. They want it to be perfect. And because it does not feel perfect, they stop. But the truth about action is very different. Most meaningful things begin imperfectly. The first page of a book is rarely beautiful. The first workout is rarely strong. The first attempt is rarely impressive. Action begins messy. Progress begins slowly. Confidence grows afterward. Yet many people wait for confidence before action. And this creates a quiet trap. Confidence comes from action, not the other way around. Another invisible barrier is fear. Sometimes we do not act because we are afraid of failure. If we never start, we never fail. And if we never fail, our dreams remain safe inside our imagination. But dreams that stay only in imagination never grow. There is also a quieter fear, the fear of discovering our limits. If we try something and struggle, we might learn that improvement takes time. We might discover that success requires patience, and patience is not always comfortable. So the mind creates small excuses. I am too busy. I will start later. I need more preparation. These sentences feel reasonable, but often they are simply delays. And then there is motivation. Many people believe action begins with motivation. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel energized. They wait to feel ready. But motivation is unreliable. Some days it appears. Many days it does not. If action depends only on motivation, progress becomes very slow. The people who achieve meaningful goals often follow a different pattern. They act even when motivation is quiet. They take small steps repeated many times, because action creates momentum, and momentum slowly makes action easier. A single step may not change everything, but it changes something important. It breaks the stillness. It begins movement, and movement is what turns ideas into reality. Understanding these patterns helps us see the problem more clearly. The difficulty is not that people lack dreams. The difficulty is that action feels uncertain, uncomfortable, and imperfect. But something powerful happens when a person decides to act anyway. Even a small action changes the direction of a day, and many small actions can eventually change the direction of a life. That is where the real story of progress begins. At this point, an important question appears. If action feels difficult, how do people begin? The answer is often simpler than we expect. They begin small. Very small? Not a perfect plan. Not a dramatic change. Just one small step. Imagine someone who wants to read more books. Instead of planning to read 50 pages a day, they begin with 5 pages. 5 pages feels easy. 5 pages feels possible. And once they begin, something interesting happens. Starting becomes easier than waiting. Momentum begins to build. The same is true for exercise. The first workout does not need to be intense. It can be a short walk, 10 minutes of movement, a small step outside the house. Action does not need to be impressive. It only needs to exist. Many people believe success comes from big changes. But real change usually grows from small repeated actions. A writer writes 1 page, then another, then another. A student studies a little each day. A musician practices 1 song at a time. Progress rarely arrives in a dramatic moment. It grows quietly through consistency, and something else begins to change when action starts. Confidence. Confidence does not appear before action. It grows because of action. Every small step tells the mind something important. I can do this. Even imperfect effort sends that message, and the mind begins to believe it. Many people spend years waiting for the right moment, but the right moment often appears after the first step, not before it. Action creates clarity. Action creates experience. Action creates learning. Without action, goals remain ideas. But with action, even small action, ideas begin to move. A dream written on paper is only a possibility. A dream supported by daily action becomes a path. This is the quiet power of doing. Not perfect doing, not dramatic doing, simply beginning. And repeating the beginning again tomorrow. Because the distance between the life we imagine and the life we live is often only one thing. Action. Small actions. Repeated many times. And when those small actions continue long enough, something surprising happens. The impossible begins to look possible. The difficult begins to look normal. And the person who once waited for motivation becomes the person who simply begins. So if you are thinking about a goal right now, do not wait for the perfect plan. Do not wait for perfect confidence. Just take 1 small step, 1 action today, then another tomorrow, and slowly your goals will move from paper into real life. Thank you for listening today. I hope this story reminds you that progress does not begin with perfection. It begins with action. See you in the next story.